My grandfather lifted his glass at my 28th birthday dinner and dropped a sentence that sliced the room open. "Claire, show me how you've used your $3 million trust fund after 25 years. The laughter around the table stopped mid-breath. Forks froze. Even the candles seemed to hold still. I felt every heartbeat echo in my ears as I whispered, "I never got one." Grandpa's smile faded. His lawyer stepped forward and set a thick stack of statements on the table with a heavy thud. And in that instant, before anyone spoke, I realized someone at that table wasn't supposed to be afraid, but they were. My name is Claire Monroe, and for most of my life, I thought being the quiet one made things easier. Quieter daughters don't make trouble. Quieter daughters don't upset the balance. And in my family, balance meant pretending everything was perfect even when the foundation had been cracking for years. I lived in a small apartment in Seattle with my roommate Jade. She worked at a nearby coffee shop, always smelling faintly of espresso and cinnamon. She was the only person who ever saw how hard I worked late nights over my laptop freelancing to cover bills balancing UX contract work that came and went like the seasons. She'd joke that I functioned on coffee and sheer stubbornness, but she also knew the truth: I didn't have anyone else to fall back on. My parents, Elaine and Daniel, lived across the lake in Bellevue, in a house people would call aspirational. Perfect lawn, perfect seasonal wreath, perfect holiday displays, and inside a mother obsessed with control and reputation, a father who nodded through life to avoid conflict, and my sister Lily, who somehow always floated through the world cushioned by my parents' affection and their wallet. Growing up, Lily got the trips to the private school. The apartment paid in full so she could focus. Meanwhile, I was told independence would build character. When I needed help signing a lease because my credit history was too thin, my mother said, "We can't bail you out every time, Claire, every time." As if there had ever been a first. Still, I kept showing up to family dinners, birthdays, holidays. I kept trying because part of me held on to the moments Grandpa Arthur stepped quietly into my life. Soft smile, warm hands, patient voice. When I was 6, he walked me along the shoreline near the house and said, "One day, I'll make sure you're safe no matter what happens." It became a memory I clung to without realizing it was a clue. My 28th birthday dinner was meant to be simple but elegant, according to my mother. The restaurant had reserved a private room, glowing amber lights, white tablecloths, glassware, arranged like a catalog photo. Everything felt staged, like the family portrait we took every Thanksgiving, stiff, polished, slightly unreal. I arrived after work still in my trench coat hair, slightly wind-tousled from the Seattle breeze. My mother gave me a once-over, smoothing Lily's hair instead. Lily flashed me a smile, blissfully unaware of the undercurrent in our family. Dinner felt like every other holiday, Lily talking about her newest adventure, my mother beaming, my father sipping quietly, and Grandpa watching everything with an expression I couldn't read. I kept my posture steady the way I always did, focusing on cutting my food instead of watching their faces. I didn't know it then, but he was waiting for the perfect moment, waiting to drop a truth that would burn through 25 years of lies. If you'd asked me an hour before the explosion whether anything felt unusual, I would have said no. Everything at that table looked painfully normal. My mother correcting Lily's posture, my father pretending to read the wine label, Lily laughing too loudly at her own stories. But underneath it all, something had been shifting for months, and I had felt it like a low hum in my bones. Dinner started with the usual subtle jabs. Elaine commented on how resourceful I'd become in that tone she used when she wanted everyone to know she believed my life was a result of poor choices, not circumstance. "Claire's always been independent," she said, smiling at the couple seated beside us. "She never needed much from us." She said it like it was praise, but it hit me like a shove. Across the table, Lily twirled her bracelet, gold delicate, the kind of gift I'd never received. She launched into a story about her weekend getaway, a trip my parents had paid for. My father chuckled, adding, "She deserves it after working so hard." I blinked. Lily had been taking a break from school for months. I pushed my fork around my plate, reminding myself to breathe. But the flashbacks clawed up anyway. The time my car broke down on the highway and I begged my mother for help because I needed it to get to work the next morning. "You're an adult," she'd said flatly. "Figure it out." I spent that night calling emergency tow services, maxing out a credit card I was still paying off. The semester in college when I couldn't afford textbooks, and asked if they could help with even a portion. "We can't keep bailing you out," she'd said. "It's not fair to Lily." Meanwhile, Lily's high school trip to Europe had been paid in full before she even packed a bag. Sitting at that birthday table, those memories didn't just resurface, they stitched themselves into a pattern I'd ignored for too long. Grandpa watched me quietly while the others chatted. He had always known when something was wrong, even when I tried to hide it. When the server refilled our glasses and the room grew a shade quieter, he lifted his wine. And then it happened. "Claire," he said gently, "why don't you tell everyone how you've used your $3 million trust fund after 25 years? The reaction was instant. Laughter, sharp, surprise, loud. Lily giggled, assuming it was some kind of joke. My mother's face flickered from confusion to panic to a stiff smile she pasted on like makeup. My father lowered his glass so fast it clinked against the table. I felt cold. Not the kind of cold that makes you shiver, the kind that hollows you out from the inside. "What trust fund?" I asked. Grandpa's smile faltered. "The one I set up for you when you were 3. My throat tightened, but my voice came out as barely a whisper. "I never got one." Silence crushed the room. Lily's smile fell apart. My father's jaw clenched. My mother stared at me like I'd spoken another language. In that suspended moment, I realized the truth wasn't just missing. Someone had taken it. The dinner didn't end, it simply cracked apart. One moment, everyone was frozen in their seats. The next chairs scraped, voices tangled, and the room felt too small to hold the lies spilling into the air. My mother was the first to recover. Her smile snapped back into place so fast it looked painful. "Dad," she said to Grandpa, her tone sugary and sharp, "I'm sure Claire misunderstood. She's always been distracted. You know how she is. Distracted." As if I had imagined 28 years of struggling alone. My father cleared his throat, eyes glued to his plate. Lily blinked repeatedly, trying to piece together a puzzle she never even knew existed. Grandpa didn't look at any of them. He looked only at me. "Claire," he said quietly, "meet me tomorrow morning. My office. 10 o'clock. It wasn't a question. And that terrified all of us. I walked out of the restaurant before anyone could stop me. The cold Bellevue air hit my chest like a fist, but I kept walking down the sidewalk, past the glowing windows, past families laughing and celebrating. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just kept replaying the same sentence over and over, the one I whispered like a confession I never got one. By the time I reached my car, my hands were shaking. My phone buzzed Jade. "How was dinner?" she asked. I opened my mouth and nothing came out. Silence told her everything. "Come home," she murmured. "Whatever happened, we'll sort it out." But deep down, I already knew. This wasn't something I could sort out. This was something that had been carefully hidden, meticulously buried.